There's a question often asked, perhaps more than any other. How do I let go? How do I let go of past hurts? How do I release expectations that cause me suffering? How do I free myself from attachments that no longer serve me? In our pursuit of happiness, we often focus on what we need to acquire or achieve. Yet the wisdom traditions of the East suggest something quite different, that true happiness comes not from adding more, but from releasing what weighs us down. As the Buddha taught, you only lose what you cling to. Think for a moment about what you might be holding on to right now. Perhaps it's resentment towards someone who hurt you. Maybe it's an expectation about how your life should have unfolded. Or it could be an identity you've outgrown but still cling to out of habit or fear. The practice of letting go isn't about denying or suppressing these feelings. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Rather, it's about learning to hold our experiences differently, with more spaciousness, more compassion, and ultimately, more wisdom. I remember walking along a beach once, fist clenched tightly around a handful of sand. The harder I squeezed, the more sand slipped through my fingers. Only when I opened my palm could I actually carry the sand with ease. Our lives are much the same way. In today's video, I'll share 4 essential steps to help you practice the art of letting go. Steps that have been distilled from ancient wisdom traditions and confirmed by modern psychological research. These aren't quick fixes or temporary solutions. They're practices to return to again and again, each time creating a little more space, a little more freedom, a little more peace. The journey begins with awareness, moves through acceptance and investigation, and culminates in the gentle art of releasing. Each step builds upon the previous one, creating a pathway to that happiness which isn't dependent on circumstances, but arises naturally when we're no longer fighting against reality. So find a comfortable space, take a deep breath, and let's begin this journey together. The journey of letting go and finding the happiness that has been waiting for you all along. Let's start with the first step. Step 1 is awareness, the gentle light that illuminates what we've been carrying. In the Zen tradition, there's a saying, you cannot let go of anything if you do not acknowledge that you're holding it. Such profound wisdom in such simple words. Consider for a moment, how often do we move through our days unaware of what we're clinging to? Our minds grasp at expectations, outcomes, and identities without our conscious permission. It's like carrying a heavy backpack for so long that you've forgotten you're wearing it. The weight has become familiar, almost part of you. But that doesn't mean it isn't taking a toll. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. There was a young monk who complained to his teacher about his difficulties in meditation. "My thoughts are wild," he said, "and my emotions overwhelm me." The teacher handed him a cup filled to the very brim with tea and said, "Carry this around the temple garden without spilling a drop." As the monk walked carefully, focusing entirely on the cup, he realized afterward that during that walk, his troubled thoughts had disappeared. "This is how to practice awareness," said the teacher. "When you focus your attention fully on what is present, you naturally let go of everything else." What are you carrying right now that you've grown so accustomed to, you no longer feel its weight? Perhaps it's resentment towards someone who hurt you years ago. Maybe it's an expectation of how your life should be by now. Or it could be an idea about yourself that no longer serves you. I invite you to practice awareness with me now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Take 3 deep breaths. Now ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I could release? Don't force an answer. Simply create the space for insight to arise. Awareness isn't about judging what you find. It's about shining a compassionate light on what is already there. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the path to liberation, to that peaceful state beyond suffering that transcends our usual worries and fears. When we become aware, we step out of automatic patterns and into the vivid present moment, where true freedom is possible. Remember, awareness itself is a form of transformation. Just by noticing what you're carrying, you've already begun to loosen its grip. Now that we've cultivated awareness, let's move to the second step. Step 2 is acceptance, the gentle embrace of what is truly here. There's a beautiful teaching in Zen. The snow falls, each flake in its appropriate place. Nature doesn't resist what arises, the winter, the rain, the changing seasons. It simply flows with what is. Now, acceptance doesn't mean resignation or giving up. It's not about saying, "This is how things are, so I must endure." Rather, it's about acknowledging reality before we attempt to transform it. Think of it like this. If you're lost in a forest, the first step to finding your way isn't to pretend you're somewhere else. It's to accept, yes, I am here in this exact spot. Only then can you begin to find your path forward. Many of us struggle with acceptance because we confuse it with approval. Remember, you can accept the reality of a situation without approving of it. You can acknowledge pain without believing you deserve it. You can recognize a difficult truth without surrendering to it forever. Consider how we often respond to emotions like anger or sadness. When they arise, our instinct might be to push them away, to tell ourselves, "I shouldn't feel this way." But that resistance only adds another layer of suffering. Now we're not just angry or sad, we're also upset about being angry or sad. There's a story about a senior monk and his student walking along a path when they came to a river with a strong current. At the edge stood a young woman in distress, needing to cross. Despite their vow not to touch women, the senior monk carried her across. Hours later, the student, still troubled, said, "How could you carry that woman? We're not supposed to touch women." The senior monk replied, "I left her at the riverbank. Are you still carrying her?" What are you refusing to accept in your life right now? Perhaps it's a change in circumstances, a relationship that's ended, or simply an emotion you believe you shouldn't have. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop there. It means you start from what's true. Like a skilled gardener who must first recognize which plants are weeds before cultivating a beautiful garden. As Thich Nhat Hanh wisely taught, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. I invite you to practice acceptance with me now. Bring to mind something you've been resisting. It could be small or significant. Now simply say to yourself, "This is what is present right now. I acknowledge its existence." Feel how that acknowledgement might create just a little more space around the difficulty. Not forcing it to change, just allowing it to be seen. Now that we've cultivated acceptance, we're ready to move to the third step. Step 3 is investigation, the curious exploration of what lies beneath our attachments. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha speaks of Dhamma Vicaya, the investigation of experience. This isn't an analytical dissection, but rather a gentle, curious looking into the nature of our clinging. When we investigate with kindness rather than judgment, something remarkable happens. We begin to see the roots of our attachments, often fear, a sense of inadequacy, or simply old habits of mind that have gone unexamined for too long. There's a saying in mindfulness practice: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. Investigation is about widening that space, bringing light to what was hidden. Consider the nature of impermanence, anicca. Nothing remains unchanged, yet we often cling as though things could last forever. When we truly investigate this reality, not just intellectually but experientially, our grip naturally begins to loosen. Imagine you're holding tightly to a beautiful glass ornament. You're afraid to put it down because you treasure it so much. But when you notice the cold sensation in your fingers, you realize it's actually made of ice. Suddenly, the wisdom of releasing becomes clear. Holding on too tightly will only cause it to melt between your fingers. Our attachments often follow this pattern. We grasp at relationships, achievements, even our self-image, as though they were solid and permanent. Investigation reveals their true nature, fluid, changing, and impossible to possess in the way we imagine. What would happen if you investigated what you're holding on to right now? Not to judge it or force yourself to let go, but simply to understand its nature more clearly? Perhaps it's an idea about how others should treat you. Maybe it's a belief about what would make you truly happy. Or it could be an identity you've outgrown, but still cling to out of familiarity. Ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if I let this go? What need is this attachment trying to fulfill? Remember the words of the meditation teacher, Joseph Goldstein. Investigation is not about finding answers, so much as learning to ask deeper questions. As you investigate, you might notice something surprising. Many attachments are trying to protect you from something you fear. By seeing this clearly, with compassion, the attachment begins to transform on its own. With awareness, acceptance, and now investigation as our foundation, we're ready for the fourth step. Step 4 is releasing, the gentle art of opening our hands and letting go. In Buddhism, this practice is sometimes called nekkhamma, renunciation. But this isn't about depriving ourselves. Rather, it's about discovering the profound freedom that comes when we release what no longer serves us. Releasing doesn't always happen all at once. Like the gradual unfurling of a tightly closed fist, it often occurs one finger at a time. And that's perfectly all right. The process itself is sacred. There's a beautiful metaphor in the Zen tradition. A bird needs 2 wings to fly, effort and surrender. We've made the effort through awareness, acceptance, and investigation. Now comes the wing of surrender, of releasing. What does it mean to truly let go? It's not about forcing ourselves to stop caring. It's about holding with an open palm what we once clutched in a tight fist. Imagine you're holding a butterfly. If you grasp too tightly, you'll crush it. If you're too hesitant, it will never rest in your hand. But when you hold it gently, with just the right touch, it may stay for a moment, and then, when it's time, fly away freely. This is how we can learn to hold everything in our lives. The Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa spoke of letting go as a positive act of creation. When we release what weighs us down, old grudges, rigid expectations, outdated identities, we create space for new possibilities to emerge. There's a story of a Zen master who received a beautiful ancient teacup as a gift from a former student. He cherished this cup deeply. Every day he would drink from it with genuine appreciation, often showing it to visitors while sharing stories of his students' kindness. Yet each morning, as part of his practice, he would hold the cup gently in his hands for a few moments and quietly remind himself, "This cup is already broken." One day, a clumsy visitor accidentally knocked the cup from its shelf. It fell to the floor, shattering into countless tiny pieces. The visitor gasped in shock and began apologizing profusely. The Zen master remained perfectly calm. Looking down at the fragments scattered across the floor, he simply nodded and said, Yes, let's begin." Then he picked up a broom and started sweeping, his peace undisturbed. This is the essence of releasing, not waiting for loss to occur before practicing acceptance, but recognizing the transient nature of all things even as we cherish them fully in the present moment. Often, what we need to release isn't out there in the world, but within our own minds. Our judgments, our need to be right, our stories about how things should be. I invite you to practice releasing with me now. Bring to mind something you've been holding tightly, a worry, a resentment, an expectation. Now, imagine yourself gently opening your hands and allowing it to rest there without gripping. Feel the subtle shift that happens when you choose to hold lightly what you once held tightly. The Vietnamese teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, offers this wisdom. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. Remember that releasing isn't something you do once and complete. It's a practice we return to again and again. Each time we let go, we create more space for peace, for presence, for the natural happiness that is our birthright. As the poet Rumi beautifully expressed, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. When we release these barriers through our practice, we discover that happiness was never something to chase after. It was always here, waiting patiently for us to let go enough to recognize it. With each breath, we can practice letting go. With each moment of awareness, we create an opportunity to release and return to our natural state of openness and peace. We've explored the 4 steps of letting go: awareness, acceptance, investigation, and releasing. Each step is a practice unto itself, and together they form a powerful path toward freedom and genuine happiness. Remember that this path isn't linear. We don't master awareness and then move on to acceptance, never to return. Rather, these steps form a spiral that we travel again and again, each time with a little more wisdom, a little more compassion for ourselves and others. The 13th century Zen master Dogen wrote, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." In forgetting the self, letting go of our rigid identities and expectations, we find a freedom that cannot be taken away. As you move forward from this video, I invite you to choose one small thing to practice letting go of today. Perhaps a judgment about yourself, an expectation of someone else, or a worry about something beyond your control. Start with something manageable. Even a moment of letting go creates space for peace to enter. I have found that letting go isn't something we achieve once and for all. It's a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice. There are days when my grip tightens again, when I forget and fall back into old patterns of clinging. That's perfectly natural. What matters is that we notice and gently begin again. The Vietnamese teacher Thich Nhat Hanh offers us this beautiful reminder. People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. When we practice these 4 steps, we build the courage to release even our most familiar sufferings, to step into the unknown space of possibility that waits beyond our attachments. The paradox of letting go is that what we release isn't lost. Rather, it's transformed. Our hurts become wisdom. Our expectations become openness. Our rigid identities become fluid, authentic presence. And in that transformation, we discover what the wisdom traditions have been pointing to all along, that happiness isn't something we achieve or acquire. It's what naturally emerges when we remove the obstacles to it. As we end this time together, I invite you to take a deep breath. Feel the natural rhythm of letting go that happens with each exhale. Your body has been practicing this wisdom all along. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Until next time, may you hold life with open hands and discover the happiness that has never left you.